Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. I had a request, and I think this person requested it a couple of times, for my favorite heat-proof, sweat-proof summer makeup for events like outdoor weddings or outdoor barbecues, or when you're just gonna be going to and from the car in 150 heat index. So I compiled some tips and tricks to do this fast and easy makeup look for you and let you know why I chose the products I chose so that they can withstand this summer heat. So let's go ahead and jump in. The first thing I do is really all year round, but especially beneficial this time of year in the heat and the really intense sun. And that is correct with my Dermatology SPF 41 corrector. Now, I do take my SPF up under my eyes, so this is just kind of an extra for me. It is not my only protection, but it definitely doesn't hurt to have extra. I never recommend relying on any of your makeup products, foundation, concealer, whatever, to be your sole source of SPF protection. The only difference and kind of caveat to that I'll talk about towards the end of this video, but this is just added and it's gonna brighten up my under eyes a little bit, and I'm putting a very small amount, which I think is gonna be an overarching theme for this entire look. Less is definitely more when you are working with heat. The more product you put on your face, the higher chance it's going to slide off when you get intensely hot. And piggybacking off of that, another tip that I highly, highly recommend going by, at least for me, is to not use creams or liquids and use as many powders as possible. Now I know there are a lot of y'all out there who just do not like powders. You swear it makes you look older, and I really think it depends on the product, the formulation, the application. All of those factors go into making a product work for you no matter how old you are. And powders are going to stay longer in the heat than creams because, again, they just don't slide off as easily. So the majority of my look, other than what I just applied, is going to be powder products. And the first thing I'm going to use is start with a powder concealer. This is an oldie but goodie from Bare Minerals, and it is their multitasking concealer. This also has SPF, it's SPF 20. Again, I'm not gonna be putting enough on to actually reap the full benefits of that SPF, but it doesn't hurt. And this is in Summer Bisque, and it's basically a mineral powder concealer. So I'm gonna take a little bit of that in the cap. I'm gonna take my Refer number 35 brush, and I am going to swirl it in the cap. So Bare Minerals is a little different than some of the other products that are powder, other powder foundations, even other loose powders. They really, really, really suggest getting that product deep into the bristles of the brush you're using and then kind of buffing it in. Now, but I'm not gonna really go to town buffing under my eye where I just put that Dermatology. So I'm gonna first kind of just tap it. And honestly, this may be all I need. If you didn't have any kind of corrector underneath your eye to begin with, then you may not need to worry about buffing it, but this is still applying the product nicely and it's not disturbing that corrector underneath. And this is formulated as a concealer. So, you know, it's intended to go under the eye. To me, it wears nicely. It doesn't really highlight anything. I don't want it to highlight being a powder right under the eye. It's no different than me setting a cream concealer. The difference is this provides the coverage, whereas the concealer provides the coverage, and I put like a thin powder, translucent powder. Is that right? Yeah, I wanted to say transparent, but translucent powder on top, whereas this is the coverage. And just like that, I have my concealer done. It's powder, so it is going to last longer and hold up better for me in the heat. Same goes for foundation. I'm going to choose a powder foundation. Now I have a wide array of powder foundations in my collection. I absolutely adore them. They are some of my favorite products to use, and I feel like they get a bad rap. I think they're getting a little bit of a better one as more information and more formulas are being released. But because I have such a wide variety in collection, I have some that are definitely more luminous on the skin than matte. I'm gonna wanna pull for something that has a little bit more of a matte finish. Now this doesn't mean I'm gonna go throughout the day matte. It means that it's gonna start off more matte than if I were to put a luminous one on. And as I go throughout the day and get hot or I'm outside, the product is going to go from a little bit matte to a little more luminous versus a little luminous to a lot luminous. Hopefully that makes sense. So before I show you the powder foundation I chose, I want to give you a tip that I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, and that is concerning the SPF that you apply on your face during your skincare routine, which in my opinion should be done 365 days a year. However, when I know I'm gonna be outside for an event, not outside like at the pool, but like for an event, a barbecue, or it's just plain hot and getting to and fro my car is going to cause some sweating, I tend to choose SPFs that do not have a tint to them. And the reason is because I find the SPFs with a tint tend to be a little bit thicker in consistency, which means they're a little bit easier and more susceptible to sliding around the face. And tinted SPFs typically tend to be a little more luminous on my skin as well. So choosing a non-tinted one helps me with that more matte aspect of the initial skin that we're working with. Today, I chose the Paula's Choice 5% vitamin C sheer moisturizer. This is the newest SPF in the Paula's Choice line, and it might be my favorite. It comes out looking like it's got like a peachy tint to it, but it definitely goes on with no tint or coverage whatsoever. I was combining whatsoever and at all. So see, when you rub it in, it's like, and it's not super shiny, totally goes away, very sheer, definitely a good choice for something like this. So let's go into powder foundation. I chose my Makeup Forever HD Skin Matte Velvet Foundation. It is in the name. This is going to be a little bit more matte than a lot of the other foundations I have in my collection. This does come with a sponge, and typically I don't use these sponges. However, I feel like there's a time and a place for them, and I like to use them in this case because A, it gives a very good amount of coverage. So hopefully you're able to see that. This is in the shade 1Y08, by the way. It's very fast and it gives me a good starting point. Because I have a non-tinted SPF underneath this, I'm gonna want this to provide a little bit more coverage than if it was tinted and I wanted to go over it with just a, fluffy brush. And I do like the sponge applicator for that. I will say my main complaint with this foundation is the color range. Even though it has a lot to choose from, I don't find that there's any one perfect color for me. If you are typically my shade twin in other foundations that I have used, and you have this and feel like it works really well for you, let me know what shade you got, because I tried one just like a step up from this and it was too dark. And then this one I feel like pulls a little light and pale on me, but we shall fix that. Now, after I have used the sponge to apply, I am gonna take a big fluffy brush and kind of put a little bit more product on and then just go and buff it. That way it's not too heavy looking and any lines that may still be there from the sponge will be blended out. Definitely need to warm up the skin. Another tip for just fast makeup in general is to find maybe a shade or two darker than you normally wear, and that way you can skip the bronzer. This is clearly not it. So I'm gonna use my Pat McGrath Sublime Bronze. This is a crown brush. A friend of mine works in the beauty industry with beauty schools, and they sent her this set, and she's not big into like makeup herself, so she just gave it to me to try. The set is okay, but I actually really like this brush. And I'm not gonna be super precise because really I wanna warm up my entire face. So even if I wanted to like go down my nose a little bit, just to get me back to like where I typically am. Again, I'm not adding a cream product, so it's not going to affect the longevity. For blush, I usually like to find a matte blush. Are you sensing a theme? And I didn't grab my blush brush, so I'm just gonna use the same crown brush, and I picked my favorite matte blush of all time, Jane Iredale Sheer Honey. And I'm just going to kind of lazily tap that on the cheeks. Again, we're going for fast as well as heat proof. I am going to skip highlight altogether. No need for it. I'm gonna be glistening by the end of the day anyways, so I'm just going to let that be something I don't do, but if I did, it would be, again, a powder highlight. Now, because we are done with complexion, I am going to actually use a setting spray today. This is one of my favorite setting sprays, the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Setting Spray. I don't typically use setting sprays on myself because I don't often need them. But if I know I'm gonna go out in the heat again, I'm going to use that. See how, I mean, it looks like super wet, but it's gonna dry down. Don't touch it right now when it's super wet. Let it kind of dry down and then we'll reevaluate at the end. For eyes, I am only going to be using shadow sticks. Hands down, the longest lasting eye product I have in my collection. And I know no matter how hot I get, they're not gonna budge. So I just picked 2 for a very quick look. I'm gonna take Laura Mercier Copper. Now, if you have very oily eyelids, I would suggest using an eye primer that's made for oily eyelids. I do not, so all I have is my NARS Soft Matte Complete Concealer on my lids, but this is enough to ensure longevity on my eyes using some type of shadow stick like this. Laura Mercier, Bobbi Brown, Beauty Pie, Sicily, they're all very long lasting. Glow Skin Beauty, I'm gonna take the shade Canyon, which is more of a matte shade, and I'm just going to roughly line my eyes to give a little bit of something different. And I'm doing that in a pretty thick line, and then I'm just gonna take a brush and kind of blend it up. And that is it for the eyes. I have a little bit of something on there. Kind of looks like I spent time on it, even though I clearly did not. I'm going to curl my lashes with my Ciroc curler. And I am not going to use an eyelash primer today. 2 reasons. The type of mascara that I'm using, I prefer not to use one. And again, less is more. If you are using the type of mascara that I'm using, which is a tubing mascara, this is the one from Milk Makeup, the Kush High Roll Mascara. If you're using a tubing mascara, which is meant to not smudge or flake, and then you put something underneath it, which is not designed to be that way, it can almost not adhere as well to the eyelash and form those tubes because it has that layer of primer underneath. So when I wear a tubing mascara, a lot of times I will choose to forego primer altogether. It just sticks to the lashes and lasts longer for me. And again, a tubing mascara is something that requires warm water to remove. So I find as long as no one dumps a bucket of warm water over my head, no matter how hot it is, this definitely holds up the best. And it looks good on the lashes as well. Another tip for super hot days is not to put anything on those lower lashes. It's just not worth even chancing, even if it's a tubing mascara that you know is gonna hold up, especially if you choose not to use a powder concealer. Sometimes the oils from the concealer can cause the mascara to smudge no matter what. It's just easier. It's fresher looking. It's more no makeup look. To me, it's just easier. So I forego anything on the lower lash line. And the only thing left we have is lips. And in this case, I am going to use a lip product with SPF 35, and it is the only SPF that I use for that area of my face. Only because even if I were to apply the SPF on my lips, I brush my teeth, I eat, it's gonna wear off faster than it wears off on the face. So if anything, I would make sure you have some kind of SPF lip product, since that is going to be the only sun protection on your lips. Color Science makes great lip glosses with SPF. This is an SPF 35, the Lip Shine in the color pink. And I just prefer wearing a gloss in the heat. There's just something about it. I prefer a gloss all year round, let's be real, but especially in the heat. And just like that, I am makeup ready for a very hot day, a very hot occasion. And I have every bit of confidence that I'm not gonna smudge, flake, slip and slide. It's gonna look as good as it does now at the end of the day, because I have used all the tips at my disposal for best makeup in very hot weather. So hopefully this was helpful. I will have everything I used listed and linked down below. Let us know your tips for hot weather makeup. And thank you so much for watching. Be sure and like and subscribe before you leave so you don't miss out on any future videos. And I hope you all go out and have a very blessed day.